Do I have a motion to reconvene open session tonight at 7 o'clock?
Motion.
Second, all those in favor? All right, let's go ahead and proceed with the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's move on to tonight's consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda as presented?
Second.
Any questions, comments, concerns, or items to be pulled from tonight's consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval? None opposed? And motion carries. We'll turn it over to Dr. Isaacson for the superintendent's report.
I have a couple of items up.
Yes.
I'll go back to back. I got two.
Okay, so we're going to superintendent report first.
I put it up here on the PowerPoint, because that way it'll also be able to be a part of viewers at home will be able to see it. Want to talk about a couple. You could click on the agenda.
I have.
I put it on there too. You may have to click enable editing.
Here we go. Oh, shoot.
All right, perfect.
There we go.
This will this click with me.
Yeah, it's up.
All right. Wanted to put this up last about a week and a half ago. The Missouri School Funding Modernization Task Force met. If you recall, this was an executive order from Governor Kehoe about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Now they're getting down kind of that brass tacks. It's due at the end of this year. Dr. Kerry Monsi's actually worked for DESE, former superintendent, is kind of chairing that, working through that with those leaders from around the states and industry. They've got it down to two different models. Model A is just modernization of our current formula and a different kind of tweaking it, revising the methodology, utilize calculate state adequacy target. That number is huge because that impacts the amount of state funding that we get like per student. We'll talk about that and some of our other items later on this evening. Updating student enrollment calculations. Now we have kind of a blend. It used to be just on attendance, but now it's also on enrollment. WANA and WAMDA and all these school finance what people kind of what are we talking about. So trying to simplify that, but also determine how to make it more modern and the old formula making it more modern. So basically just tweaking that. Now the big change is if the next one is Model B, Combined Wealth Index. This, in my mind, is going to be kind of a game changer. Especially for like a district like Hillsboro. And some of the items that we're going to talk about this evening is doing a combined wealth index is where the state funding will use a set property valuation per pupil incorporate median household income per pupil relative to statewide average. So I'll use our school district as an example. As we're talking about tax levies this evening, but our tax levy at Hillsboro this upcoming year, when it's set in September, it was at 367. And as we paid off the debt service and assessed valuation had went up, we're going to be rolling that back, anticipated the $3.43. Is based on tax rates last year, the lowest in St. Louis metro area. Find all the different controls there and significantly schools all the way to the booty. Schools that would be lower than that are currently would be a Perry County, but they just that's Perryville increased theirs with St. Jen with the Mississippi line, Wholesome, right? My point to all that is the state of Missouri is saying, Hillsboro, okay, your tax rate's 243, but you're a well-to-do area. We're not going to subsidize you. You're going to pay more than because you can afford it. And making it, if you don't want to pay in taxes, that's fine on property taxes, but it's also going to impact your state aid. And so it takes it out to where they use that calculation, like, hey, how much you're paying in property taxes impacts the state aid. And so, like a very well-to-do area in St. Louis, it's going to get very little state aid. And a poor area in outstate Missouri, etc. I could see this, Jon Isaacson's opinion, them moving to this, especially as a state budget crunch, that we're moving into that. There's limited funds. The state legislature in such rural Missouri versus there's a lot of poor areas in the state of Missouri. And that was one of the things, even a lot of misconception with this. And that's why I put our free and reduced. A person asked, a school district to the south of us is giving free lunches and breakfast to all their students. And individuals like, well, Hillsboro. Well, the reason that school district's doing it, the local taxpayers aren't paying for that. I mean, there's a push. I was saying it's not just, but they're not funding free meal. That's a federal program because their poverty rates are so high that collectively, as an area, that they qualify for help on a federal level to pay for that. So when we look at, all right, we're going to start funding school districts based on wealth. Currently to 2025, when you look at free or reduced lunch, they talk about relative to income per pupil, relative to statewide averages. The statewide average on free and reduced lunch is 49.3%. Hillsboro's 20% lower. That's well-to-do compared, right? So that, from a state funding, worries because that's the state saying, hey, you have the ability to pull more weight to fund your school. Will you hit a button for it or just how this isn't working with it?
Is that Scott?
So they have to decide by the 31st. State Board of Education met earlier this week on FY28. They're a full year ahead of us, requesting $400 million in general revenue for the foundation formula. Educational organizations have noted that a substantial portion of the requested increase is more driven by virtual and charter schools rather than traditional public schools like Hillsboro. Is driving that number. In regards to transportation, DESI is requesting an additional $26.5 million. This request replaces some one-time funding in this fiscal year, including a 3% increase. For us, we have a lot of miles that we cover. Transportation is huge versus a Crystal City or even a Festus that isn't very large. The transportation hits us much more significantly, but that transportation reimbursement is still projected to be below the state statute that the state is supposed to pay at 75%. So the state does have some budget concerns moving forward. So I think you went two slides. A through F, not going to talk too much on that, but this is more on the funding. Is DESI's requesting about $500,000 in supplemental for this year to assist with putting that in place, and $6.5 million next year. And then there's a grant, struggling schools grant program, $10 million to establish, to identify and support struggling schools. I don't believe those will. Okay. We have another community listening session. I want to highly encourage individuals to come on. We haven't finished our work. We've gotten the work thus far that we have a really handle on our immediate phase one priorities. What is the things that we need to address immediately, but we're still working through like, hey, there's future phases to this of what do we want our school district to look like. So please come on the 27th at 6:30 in this room. I want to encourage everyone to check out the district podcast. It's actually on Apple Podcasts. I was listening to one this morning. A couple of our principals, so we set out like 1.6. They sound a little different, a little Mickey Mousey, but you can fly through it. I sound better, I felt like. Mr. Quinn has done an excellent job sitting down with our administrators. It's very informative on, they were talking about Rider Row and early childhood. Theirs is a lot more kid-centric. Mine can get bogged down in some tax talk. And so we're going to have kids on there, but Mr. Quinn has done a great job with that. Thank you. And all of our principals who jumped on there, I'm really excited for the kids to jump on, kind of talk about the different programs that we have. All right. Can you push me along there? This is. Wanted to highlight first day of schools on the next Monday. Our teachers do such an amazing job on their classrooms. I believe Tyler at the intermediate,
Yeah.
Mr.
Davis?
Mr. Davis did a superhero theme, and at the primary, different 80s themes. It's just our teachers do such a great job decorating their room, and then you can slide me along here, move me along. Just threw some slides up there. This is to make all of us feel old. The high school welcomed the class of 2030. 2030. I graduated in 1993. That's like, wow, that's a long time ago. So they did their orientation. Each of the buildings are great. You can move along there. Ms. Nowak hosted our substitute meeting. We've got all of our staff there. Yesterday we had a great convocation. I believe after my talk, the staff had a lot of fun and going through that. I was very strategic to not put myself after Mr. Adams, but prior, and so. So, we'll go to the next slide. I guess I doubled up on that. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's
All right. So just wanted to highlight some of the photos. Also, thank you, Mr. Quinn, of just getting into classrooms and highlighting that for our teachers and videos. And I think that's important for our community to see. So we're ready to have a great school year and a lot of excitement. And our maintenance staff and the bus staff, Dr. Lou, has done a great job of just the entire team has really gotten everything ready to go. So. Ready or not, we got 3,000 kids coming.
Monday morning, that's right.
So, all right. I'll jump into the budget amendment. Mrs. White, as we run through this, we have our August budget amendment. As the board's aware, we do this on a monthly basis to ensure that our budget is as accurate as possible as we go through the year and the different changes. So, this month, not a whole lot to it as we're just getting started, but Just some updates related to, there's a summary, so I'm going to jump. If you want to jump in as a community member, I put that on a presentation because it's easier to see, but this is the summary. So overall, we're increasing our revenues. You want to see increase in revenues and decrease in expenditures. Ideally, that's where we want to have going on. So increase in summer school lunch, some ECSE increase in payments, base and performance grant revenue by 24,000, and then increase in $51,000 in some food service revenue. You can go slide along through there, Mr. Quinn. And we did have an overall increase in some expenditures. Increase of $400 for some home economics, a mixer damage during summer school, ag expenditures related to our CTE and base and performance grants and supplies, reduction of $50,000 because Hillsboro PD, the school resource officer, I'm going to talk about that. Increase of $9,300 for some of the Evolve software, I guess $30,000 there. One more slide. So I have it broke out there. I think it was one more page of some summer
Another one?
projects. Go back. Go back. We're going the other way. Oh, that must. It's all in the packet there. I thought there's maybe one more back. Is the summary there? You can go forward, Mr. Quinn. Okay, next. This was our July recapitulation. You'll see here, there's not much change. These columns are the exact same. The only change from last month to this month, when you take next slide, I summarize it to make it easy, right? It's just at the bottom. It's the anticipated ending balance, because we got the 90,000 in revenue, we're spending 40 more, but our anticipated balance increased by 63,000, and the percentage increased by 0.1256. So not very much, but that gives us our latest update on that. All right. So that's the budget amendment that needs to be approved.
Okay, any questions on the superintendent's report or the finance report for this month? Okay. Next up then would be a motion to approve that budget amendment as we saw it presented this evening. Second. Any other questions on the budget amendment for August? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval? Opposed? Motion carries. Any items of public comment this evening? Public comments? Will take us into some new business. First of which is an approval for bill of payment to Jefferson College. Do I motion to approve the bills to Jefferson College in the total amount of $250?
Second.
Questions on this bill for payment? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of approval? None opposed with one abstention. Motion carries. Next up is the approval of Individuals with Disabilities Education Act local compliance plans as a certification statement. Do I have a motion to approve the certification statement as presented?
Motion.
Any questions on any of this contents? With the federal regulation, we have that statement on file. Okay, no questions? Comments, concerns? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of approval? And none opposed, that motion carries. Next up is the approval of Jovio Inc. career site. Do I have a motion to approve Jovio Inc. for the 26-27 school year at a cost of $6,000? This has a one-time setup and a build-out fee of the software for $3,000. Motion.
Second.
Questions, concerns, or additional information?
Just a quick additional information. This is Ms. Nowak, who works a lot with our HR. And this hopefully it will be cost neutral. There was a program that I typically been using with our frontline human capital analytics, and we talked about it, especially with my retirement is more of a John. We can still accomplish it. Is this program will bring more value to the district? And so we're spending 6,000, but we're going to cancel. I believe I put that at the bottom of that. So more of a revenue, close, not entirely revenue neutral, but expense neutral. So we'll be canceling that as we kind of set something up for future.
Okay. Any questions, concerns? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approval? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, we are going to turn the floor over to our friends from our architects, Bob, Hollis, and Miller tonight for Facilities Master Planning Updated Community Engagement Summary. Come on down.
You want me to cue you, Patrick, or ready to
Sure.
go? I'll just point. You shouldn't point, Tom. Make a motion. Yes, this is a new clicker. Well, members of the board, district leadership, thank you for having us tonight. It's good to be back in front of you. We wanted to take a few minutes tonight to set you up a little bit for some future conversations you're going to have in just a few minutes. So what we wanted to do is articulate to you how we've gotten to where we are currently with the levy and the assessments that we've done. And so when we were hired in, well, it was about Memorial Day, I believe, so it was towards the end of May. We usually do this process, it's a 5-step process. We usually take 10 to 12 months to do it, but we kind of signed up to do it in about 12 weeks. So we have been going warp speed. I think many of you guys, familiar faces, I think you've seen some of our presentations before, but we are currently in the step 4. So we've been in the buildings, we worked through some of those planning priorities, and those planning priorities are kind of what we prioritize some of our current budgets and some things that you've seen. And now we're into what we call exploring the options. So this is where we started to put dollars and cents to all of those things that became clear to us were important to us as architects and engineers in order to keep your facilities in good working condition. And then also the feedback that we heard from the 941 respondents that we had through the QR code that we put out on the Nest, and then also the links that Patrick and his crew had sent out to get us results from surveys. So we had a really great turnout. Like I said, 941. So this is where we're at today, kind of in that beginning stage of exploring those options. We're starting to put dollars and cents to everything we've heard, and we're starting to build out what phase 1 and future phases of this levy could be. So Patrick will kind of go on. And the way this works is the collecting of the data is we looked at it in 3 ways. So educational centric, so we ask questions on an educational basis, a people-centric basis, and then also directly about facilities and data. So we didn't just look at any one kind of focus for the district. We kind of took all parts and pieces and components into consideration when we asked the questions that we asked. Okay. And then, so what we did is we have a three-part survey is the way that we set it up. So one of the first questions you would answer is if you're a district employee, a parent, a community member, or another. And then you get slightly different questions based on that answer, because if you're a community member, you may not know or be as familiar with something in schools as if you were a district employee. So we try to gear those questions more specifically to those individual groups. We did have the Nest open for, it was about 3 weeks. So we said 2 is what we typically do. We left it open a little bit longer, just so we could try to capture as many responses as we could. We kind of took it to the wire and actually closed today. So we kind of left that open for as long as we possibly could to get as much data as we could from it. So the results are going to be the overall views, right? What people thought overall holistically about the district, views based by roles. So whether you're one of those roles up there at the top by a grade level, so we can break that down for you. So if you're interested to see what the high school said versus the intermediate, the elementary, the ECC, we can provide that data to you. And then we also looked at tools that support learning. So we did ask questions about that as well. Okay. And so this is the way it worked out. And those numbers are a little bit small, but I will tell you that we had great parent turnout. And then the ones that we were really anxious to see are down in the lower left on the responses from the community. So out of the 941 responses, we had about 222, 222 total responses as of today from community members. So, And then you can see over on the right-hand side by what school they responded, so we tracked that as well, so you guys can kind of see how that worked out. And then what we wanted to do tonight is start to help understand where some of those planning priorities came from. So this is what we got out of the survey. So the district strengths, and this is what's great that we found, is there is good harmony in between what we got out of the nest, the results that we got from the nest, as we got from our staff, parents, and the other community members that came from the URL. So they were very much aligned with the results that we got. So it's, you know, the district strengths are the high quality teachers and staff, a great welcoming environment. They all see that we have some athletic opportunities that we could improve on around the district, and then a variety of courses and programs that you offer. Okay? Specifically talking about parents and staff, they love that welcoming environment, the high quality teachers, their those experience every day, and then a variety of courses and the career opportunities that you guys provide for the CTE. Now, this is where it gets to where we start to tie into the data that you're going to see. So these are things that we saw and resonated with us as we went through the surveys. These are the district opportunities. So where people think there could be some improvements. So that's safety and security, the overall quality of the facilities, our student to teacher ratio, and then the community members, their number one thing was that student mental health. Okay. So then what we want to do is dig into where are they with the information that they're seeing from us as they come to the community forums that we've had and the data that they have seen thus far, kind of where we're starting to go. Will you support this? And so, as you can see, the district employees are all about it, right? They're 60+%. That likely to support over there is almost 30. So we're doing really great with the things that we're talking about, the data that we've talked to the teachers, the staff, those that participated in some of the efforts thus far. They're all behind what we're going towards here. When it comes to the parents, very much the same. We have 33% that are likely to support, 28 or 26% that are in full support, and then we have that big chunk that's undecided. And I'll tell you now that the groups that we're gonna work on now, from now until ballot day, are those groups that are in the orange, those ones that are slightly undecided. What can we do to make them flip their votes from one way to another and make sure that they support us? Okay. The tension's building. This next slide's better be good.
Yeah, right?
I think we're locked up.
It did.
Oh, there it was. So the next slide, what we'll see is what we did was we
You want me to go
combined.
forward? We're gonna go back.
Go back one slide,
I'm trying.
because we combine them. You're working hard over there, I know.
I don't know why I will go back.
Well, it was really good, Dad. I promise.
Is this it right here?
Oh, that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. So what we wanted to do is combine those that are truly engaged, those students, the parents, and the district employees into one graph for you. So you can really see here that black or dark brown piece on the lower right-hand side. We have over 70% that are in full support of kind of the direction that we're heading. So that's really good news. But what's also important to us is what the community members say. So these are the community members that don't necessarily live in the buildings and bring their students or whatever each and every day. They just live in and about Hillsboro. So you can see that, you know, the things that we have talked about and that we mentioned thus far, you know, 26% are in that full support range. You got 22% that are likely to support and 27% that are just a little bit undecided and they need a little bit of help to make their final decision. So you can see that we've got really good support. I think we've communicated really well thus far. We saw a lot of work to do, but you can kind of see that the direction that we're moving seems to be the right one. Okay. And then the last question that we asked in the last slide here. So the last thing that we wanted to make sure that we were doing is figuring out exactly what they were in support of. So that was one of the questions that we asked. So you can see on the far left, and we'll just go left to right. The highest priority was safety and security. Okay. The second one was fine arts and performing arts facilities and some technology, indoor and outdoor athletic facilities, and then the next highest was learning environments. So what we have crafted thus far, and you guys will see a little bit later tonight, is we've started to put a list together. That's how we built the priorities to what you're going to see tonight based on what we think phase one could look like, right? So we still have time to move things around a little bit within that, but we really tried to focus heavily on that safety and security, the fine arts and performing arts, indoor and outdoor athletics, and those learning environments. So you guys will see that with some of the information that you'll see. So with that, that's kind of what we wanted to bring to you tonight in terms of how we got to where we are, the data that we used. So it was not siloed, it was a very holistic approach, and you guys had great turnout for your community. 941 is a really good number. So you guys should be proud of the support that.
Yeah, that was my question for you, 941 total responses. What do you typically see if there's an average
Um,
number that kind of goes along with this kind of work?
For a district this size, sometimes we'll get 200 or 300.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
Good.
Yeah, it's usually those staunch supporters that are gonna take the survey and take the time. You guys had a lot of community members, a lot of parents, a lot of district staff that did take the time to complete the survey, which really helps us make better informed decisions. You're only as good as the data that you have, right?
Yep.
So good in, good out, and I think we got really good in. We got a lot of different voices. There are individual comments that you'll see when we give you guys the full raw data, that we just allowed a box, just type in whatever you want to say, right? You don't have to click a box and say, I want this or that. It's just tell us what you think.
Mhm.
And so we have a lot of that data to share with you guys as well.
Other questions?
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you
Thanks
guys.
for your work thus far, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our next item is related to the approval of the ballot resolution for November 3rd. I want to turn the floor back over to Dr. Isaacson for some presentation material before we discuss.
Mr. Quinn, did you download that, or is that literally coming out of the Google
It's downloaded onto this computer.
onto
As a
that
slide.
specific computer? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this evening, we've come to that point. Kind of full, up to this. All right.
I can move it for you.
In February 26th, board meeting, when we had some community members come to the board, talk about some concerns related to facility, operational, safety, citing concerns about just the future. Been asking the board to explore those and even increasing taxes, avoiding us to do that. We partnered with our architects who went through our buildings and continue to work through that process. And we're continuing to visit with the community. And even though with this presentation, talking about, I want to reiterate, I think the audio was up even prior. Please come to that community meeting. And even as we go through this process, it's also, a lot of times, the things we're talking about, the community's gonna get engaged. And I really encourage the community to stay engaged, even beyond November and all those, because it's important for the leadership in the school district, for the board, to not just have that ongoing engagement. So, even though I'm gonna be presenting some ideas and things that were, because we have to move forward, this has to go to the county clerk, if approved by the board, no later than the 25th, which should be Tuesday. So this evening, I guess I put this for potentially using it in the future, so it said the board approved, you haven't necessarily approved, so that can be deleted. I just, in planning for the work. One of the things as we go through this, I want to talk about is the work that the board has done and the school district that we've done over an extended period of time, closing in almost a decade. As I told this, all the teachers and staff, and sometimes when you start looking at things and reflecting versus looking at things in isolation, it truly is pretty special and unique, candidly. The things that we've been able to accomplish and do is being creative, and it's just, I'm proud of it as a district and excited about it. So, and I think our community has a heck of a school district, an effective school district, ran very well, ran very conservative from a fiscal standpoint, and just something to be proud of. So, let's talk some where we're at, then we'll get into the whys and the recommendations. This is in our budget, I'm including it here. This was in the budget as we got some tighter numbers throughout the summer. Recommendations actually will be about $3.43 in the overall tax rate. You can see the decline since 1819 as we paid off our debt. The debt service has went down. We haven't went back and asked for a tax increase or a no tax anything. We paid off the debt, and that money has went back to the taxpayers. And we had a pretty solid plan in doing things and, along those lines. We built reserves, et cetera. Our current tax rate, as I highlighted here, is lower than it actually was in 1993. As I referenced, I graduated from 1993. That's why I put that in there. But the Great Flood, and it's kind of a reference point, and that's things were a lot cheaper back then. Our tax rate was $4.75 about 11 years ago. So next. I highlighted this, but just put it in as I was visiting with our staff about it and our community that's watching, is in 2019, we had $27.7 million in general obligation bond debt. That will be paid off at the end of FY this year. That's about 7 cents remaining on the levy will also would roll off for next year. So as we're talking about a levy increase, like what I'm recommending, there's money coming up, so that's not, when you see 344 and saying, all right, we're gonna add this amount, it's actually dropping 337, working from that number, okay, next year. Mr. Rienauer has done an amazing job writing grants. Over the last few years, we've secured $750,000 in grants, reducing the reliance on tax dollars that allowed us to do the CTE, a greenhouse, and the facts rehab, and working with Mr. Rienauer submitted the grants, but there's a lot of people that contribute to that. Dr. LaRue and Ms. Hildebrand and Ms. White and the different principals to get all that information together is collectively, this saves taxpayers a lot of dollars. Next. There, I just added this while I was sitting. As I was sitting and thinking about this, one of the things too that we talk about, and I pay attention to social media as a superintendent, and recently a local school district was talking about finances. And the thing that you see is, especially when we're talking about asking voters for taxpayer dollars, cut the administration. Cut the administration. We're over a topic. Is one of the things when I, 2018, that in that time became superintendent, is central office, that's what this is. This sheet right here is from the annual Secretary of the Board report, ASBR from DESE. This gets sent to the state of Missouri. This is a legal document on their state website, but we get it where it's broke down, right? So this isn't, Jon Isaacson, the superintendent, this is our legal document. Is 2018 salaries for executive administrative services, $1.5 million. $426,000 employee benefits, insurance. In 2025, our central office spend $739,000 in salaries, $194,000 in benefits. Approximately half of what they were in 2018. And I just point that out as far as that's important. Our state average is one administrator for every 156 students. In Hillsboro, we have one administrator for every 186. So 30 more students per administrator. And that's not to say that we can't, as enrollment goes down, continue to look to be efficient. My point to adding this is, I can tell you from Jon Isaacson's perspective, so as we become more efficient, and I started this role as HR, and I remember 2016 as enrollment, I went and asked to reduce 2 first grade teachers. Because then I went to second grade teachers. And if we're gonna talk about class size, and the class sizes stay the same, but I knew that if I had to go talk to teachers and we were talking about classes, we had to also, we started at central office. Kind of started, I didn't replace the assistant superintendent position of HR, which I served. And so highlighting that, because sometimes as we go in, I talk with the teachers about that, is we've done, when I talk about where our district is at. Not that we're perfect, there may be, but we have done the work that I truly, as I get into this, and we talk about some of the reductions at the state level, which is this slide right here. We had built for a lot of different things, and then decisions outside of this room, and outside of what we can control, of now are impacting us. This past budget last spring, Missouri's budget didn't fully fund K-12. And so for what it meant for the school district, right around approximately a little bit more, $713,000 last year reduction in revenue that we had anticipated and been told like in August the previous year. That's that state adequacy target of, my head's going blank, $7,145 per student. This represents, what actually got funded was $6,900 per student, okay? Our first check in July was $6,750 per student, a reduction of another $150 to that. So our budget projects a reduction in state funding from previous, not from previous, but those 2 years cumulative is $1.5 million in 2 years. Reduction that the state basically is saying, we're not going to pay this anymore. The local communities can decide to, whatever that money is used for, if you want to continue those items, but we're not able and won't be funding that. So, and some of that, there's some unfunded mandates in there, inflation, and the cost of providing a high-quality education and opportunity to students they deserve. Why do I bring this up is, in developing, we talked all through the summer on projects. And even in a leader article in June, I referenced at that time, I think it was actually a couple weeks ago, an article, that I referenced about $1. Is the ask this evening is going to be more than that $1 because of this. And here is why. We're still right at, right in that dollar range to pay for projects. It was an estimate kind of based on this long time of what we anticipated. But here's the thing, and that's very important for the board and the community to understand is $1, any number higher than $1, any number, the higher you go, the harder to pass. To me, and I'll just give the number that we need to take the vote is $1.39. And here's the why, is as we talk about these projects, if we ask the community, hey, I need you to approve $1, and we build these projects, and it passes in November. The trust of our community is way too precious to have these, we lost this state funding, $1.5 million. To then, and our reserves are going down a little bit this year. That has to be plugged. Is to then be like, well, we're having to cut this program. And as a parent in the district, I voted yes for a safe thing. 2 months later, you're cutting my daughter's program or my son's this, or you're having your class size. That's gonna damage trust. And the long-term cost of that has to be, we have this number, candidly, I've stressed significantly on just getting the right number to take care of our students in addition to the projects. And so, also establishing priorities even before we get into this, because we have some reserves. I've asked this question, I got asked this question by some parents of, well, we have some reserves, you have 23%, like, spend the reserves on different percent. That can't happen. Candidly, we put $200 million down on the HVAC project in order to save taxpayer dollars on interest. That investment, and then we did the transfer in the capital of about $1.9 million, which on our reserves, on the ballpark, is 6%. Approximately what? Okay. That's what I was said, about 6%. Right? So that money of our reserves and doing facility projects, the board can't spend any more of that money. The money in our reserves has to focus on the reason that we're here, protecting that the reason we're here, which is educating kids. And that means investing in the people that teach our kids. Classroom salaries, the nearly 400 employees that we have here, those reserves is, we have to protect that to ensure that we have the very best teachers in front of our children. That are decorating the classrooms like I just showed earlier and doing all of that is ensuring that that board has to maintain salaries and all those different items. Priority number one. Secondly, is when your children are here in our district, commit to have a great teacher in front of them, and as we've committed to the safety and security and our officers and the systems that we put in place, the board's made a heck of an investment in that. When you talk about the weapons detection systems, metal detectors, and then the staffing for that, it's money well spent. But those two things, as a parent, when they send their children, our commitment is a lot of different things, but the primary one is to have a great teacher, teaching reading, writing, arithmetic, and that they feel safe when they send their kids to school. Everything other than that, in my mind, is then it starts opening up the discussion for like, what do we want our school to look like? But we have a commitment, these are the non-negotiables that we spend our money on, those reserves. Next. So through this process, and I very clearly, I know it's in small writing, but I want to be very clear. These are illustrative drawings, kind of the idea of brainstorming drawings. So if you're watching this in video later, you're like, well, hey, my thing, they're going to put, this is completely illustrative as we're brainstorming to then identify where different things would be going. So we literally, not all inclusive, because there's a bunch of playground stuff. This needs to be addressed right here behind the primary. It's grass. It needs to have a surface that, when it rains, doesn't force the kids to go out here, right? On blacktop, out in the middle of the parking lot, the cars going. So again, not all inclusive. Running through this, Mr. Quinn, you go. Each building has identified things. Again, the elementary playground needs some addressing. Cafeteria on the elementary. And then, the intermediate, the gym down on the south end of this. Over here, I know there's we need to address some ADA issues on the old football field, to provide access. Junior high, some restrooms, some fine arts in the band room, storage items, cafeteria, farm area for classrooms, a welding shop, which is currently behind my office there, but the wood shop and expanding, that is such a growing program and a need, and identified as a strength of our district. And some rehabilitation of the classrooms. Candidly, if you see this green here, I'm gonna say it publicly, because I actually asked the architects before the meeting, I go, you're not touching the barn. And they're like, we're gonna put restrooms in the barn, in the classroom area. So that's nothing in front of they've assured me, nothing in front of the barn. So, if you look at that, somebody sees something, they'll have the same reaction I did. Next, Mr. Quinn. So, now we're getting into the meat of it. The approval tonight will be for Proposition H, and focusing on the priorities that have been identified as top priorities by our community through that interactive process, and we agree administratively and our teachers, is we need to get a secure entrance at Hillsboro High School. The weapons detection system is a huge upgrade. Having an SSO is a huge upgrade. But that high school was built in 2000 and designed, candidly, we're probably too far along. Columbine's 1999-ish. I remember that was like the first couple of years of teaching. And we built a high school, and you walk right into everything. The timing of that, it looks pretty, but we need to address that. That's our most vulnerable building. Increasing campus security with security cameras in the building, high definition. We do have some integrated cameras that, quite frankly, it's hard to see them. We've updated a couple of our buildings, but we need to address that with cameras. And then secure access control doors with the key card. Is doing HR for a bunch of time, like you have employees that leave the district and, do they have a master key, chasing them down, and all of those different items is when you have, even as an employee, where, so we have our alarm code at central office, so if Dr. Isaacson comes and goes, but a key card, John was there at 2:30 on Saturday. So, aside from during the day, but also just big time security. Traffic and transit. You've driven through our campus in the morning, and this is a big one. We're going to be doing the project this upcoming year in summer. We're working with the city on Leon Hall, but we need to put a road that goes around by the primary for our early childhood pick up and drop off, and then putting in some roads that like around by the high school and access for some of our older individuals with disabilities would be more of is that attend different items. Also, it's school district, but there is community benefit to this for the Civic Club. And we have a lot of different activities community-wise, especially as a hub of the school district. They use our things, not that we're doing things for that, but they would. When I was thinking about benefits, it's like the high school lot gets used during the fair versus walking through our playgrounds. There'd be a road and sidewalk, more of an easy access. But the bigger thing out of all of that is student safety related drop-off, pickups, and egresses, which this in turn here potentially helping us eliminate the need to go through Hawk Point subdivision. Next. Also items identified is I talked about at Bronner Ridge, that career and technical education center with classrooms, and the shop is, and also as I'm talking, if I interrupt, I don't want to misspeak on anything, is that building talked about that is having it also serve potentially as a community storm shelter. We don't have anything like that. We're not gonna declare it officially like it's Hillsboro Community Shelter, because then it becomes like you gotta have all Hillsboro, but provide that building, we using that where there's portions of it, we don't have students there all the time. Is we do a lot of work with Chief Gaudet and Hillsboro Fire Protection, where we open this building up in different storms, but this building isn't necessarily weatherproof, but have something, not only for our students, but it's near the fire department. I visited Chief Gaudet about that, easily accessed for the community on a storm shelter. And then part of phase one, eventually, as our district grows, is there's been mentioned we'll need a fine arts building. This isn't that. This is kind of phase one to move the band room and our fine arts choir to like near the middle of the village in a larger spaces, planning for a larger band as we're going to grow. And that's, by having that in there now, it saves taxpayer dollars and lays kind of the phase two, it reduces the cost of a fine arts building. That opens up that area to then bring in the restroom room project. When we talk about the shop going to the farm, where the kids are doing all that work in a career and technical education center, that allows us to use the current wood shop, if you're familiar with our high school, it's got the garage on the end, to that be the weight room facility, allows us to put a wrestling room in the current band room, and reuse those facilities as a phase one. So it's a lot of different items there. The other big items, because we wanted to address each of our buildings, there's needs and all, is district-wide playground safety upgrades. The intermediate has the new playground, but upgrading some modern impact surfacing, that's a fancy word for like something soft when it could fall, right? And that could be like behind the primary, artificial turf, so it looks like grass, but kids can play in there. And when we talked about when it's raining, so the teachers can go out there versus out on the old bus lot and asphalt, which is a huge safety and security issue. Being out there, because people drive through, and we put cones, but we just need to upgrade that. And so, athletic facilities and community access, strategic improvements to our athletic facilities, including the baseball field, we talked about that. The stadium is, our turf there is getting 2018, 17 it went in. We're creeping up on 10 years old. It's life use. And then improving with some bleachers on the south side of that, which we've had a concrete pad since for 20 years. And it's just, we've had some big gains here and big competition. We also had district track and all of that. Our stadium, because we have a beautiful facility, but we don't have a whole lot of seating. And it's really not good as far as ADA. It's a long walk for a handicapped individual to go all the way, especially even using the restroom. And so addressing that. And then these are, even on surveys, no community members like, get a new HVAC on the top of the roof, I can't see. But as you can, these are important that we keep up with as a school district. There's gonna be some timing to it, but, you know, it was $8.5 million to do the high school. You know, those are big projects that, because it hit this year, I talked about earlier about our reserve, $2.5 million down to state taxpayers' interest. We wouldn't have had to put that down, it just would have cost more interest. Cost taxpayers more dollars is, by doing these things now, we actually can save some money for tax dollars. So, the architectural team put a list, and we discussed phase one, because anything we talked about in phase one, they did a great job of working with us and the team, is if we're gonna ask taxpayers, we have to deliver, right? When we say we're going to do something. So the classroom edition, these are estimates. We haven't went out for bids, but best estimates costs to develop. And the thing is, the way we're setting this up is a project comes in cheaper. That's, all right, what can we use that on the next project? What can we use that in the next project? And so a stepped in phase, these also, because I talked about August 27th. Please come to that meeting, because we're developing phases and priorities. This is kind of talking what we know now, but there is, when we talk about the communities established, okay, in future years, not on this evening, future years, which one are we doing first? That still needs to be, the decisions like that need to be worked out and discussed. So, using all of this, the cost of waiting, as we kind of looked at things, costs aren't going to go down. Delaying on our projects. Things are getting older and it's going to be more expensive. And these are it's the lowest prices it's going to be now. I visited a retired superintendent just for some counsel on this, trying to find the right number. We kind of was like, Robert, that will never be cheaper. The way that your district is doing this allows you to really take advantage of, even be flexible to where if oil prices are high one summer, okay, we can pivot and we're gonna move to do this project. Or if they're down, we can pivot, let's get those parking lots in. And truly the consumerism, spend it once, spend it right, move on to the next project. Which is exciting. Okay? So, before you is a question, submitting an operating tax proposition to voters on November 3rd. As I stated, $1.39. This, based on the information that I know now, I'm recommending this based on our state funding, our current tax levy and expended, we run a lean ship here. We have great programs here. Based on looking at 20 years of inflation, I went back 20 years, looked at okay, how are things gonna grow? What is that, so that if we vote this and it's approved, that barring things we don't know about that haven't been in place yet, there's some outside of this control that incubate that based on Hillsboro's assessed valuation, where we're at with facility needs, the state funding, and how that looks, and is currently using our current, what we did not get from the state. This is levy built in to replace that. That the states, we're not gonna pay it, but the Hillsboro community says, that's important to us, we're staying in the gap to continue the programs that we have and to ensure that our teacher salaries continue to go up with inflation to meet those goals. If approved, this adjustment will not take effect until 2027. This year's tax rate, regardless of this approval in November, or however it goes, but if approved in November, will not then be the next, because people get their tax bills and whoa, hey, next month, it is not going up. It's a year. So this is, the tax rate's gonna go down to 343-ish. This is, as we sit here today, those taxes, if approved, won't get paid for a year and a half away. The main purpose, current educational programs and staffing, addressing identified facility, safety, and instructional priorities. Next. So, this here slide, it's trying to take ballot language. So this, I'm going to show it in two spots, but this is a breakdown of specifically what's in the ballot language. So, construction of a secured entrance at Hillsboro High School, installation of improvement of security cameras and secure doors throughout the district, playground safety, security and ADA improvements, road parking and traffic infrastructure, improvements designed to improve student drop-off and pickup operations and reduce congestion, improvements to athletic facilities throughout the district. And that's not just a field, a baseball field. This is ADA walkway to down beyond intermediate for students that go down for field day. And/or I know like youth football, like our community uses that. There's not an easy way down there. If you're in a wheelchair, there's actually a gravel, it's not, it was built a long, long time ago. So addressing that, fine arts facilities, I talked about the classrooms, but also addressing, we have a great band program at the intermediate, junior high. Junior high still has the old wood cubbies, plywood, addressing that to continue to grow that and provide for those students who are involved in those activities, as well as choir and drama. Construction of the new high school fine arts classrooms, choir, drama. In preparation of new spaces is, when I asked the architects to design for a school of 1,600. I think that's important, is historically we've been right at 1,000, 1,100. Is the decisions made today, we talked about that, will have implications 15, 20 years from now. So to build an 1,100, a band room, the current size, board, it might be 5, 10 years away, then we have the space to grow into. It's planning ahead versus, in other words, you're putting an addition on band. That will also serve as a storm shelter for this side of campus and the high school and activities. Especially in the spring, we have the choir concerts with primaries and high school, that opportunity. As I talked about, career and technical education facility at Powder Ridge that may also serve as a community center and allow us to continue to do those things. So on the next slide, this is the official ballot. I sent this to Mrs. Goff this morning. Just make sure I had everything checked in. This has been approved by the bond attorneys and Mrs. Goff, as I said, because there's all the specific rules and I didn't want to mess it up prior to bringing it to you. So as you'll see here is very explicit. It's not just, hey, trust us to construct something. Is construction of the secure entrance at the high school, installation of security cameras, playground safety, construction of all those different things. I'm not going to reread them to you. Okay, so everything that I just stated, very clearly stated in here, as well as the ability for general operating purposes. It's not just these things, the district's going to have the ability to continue to address items. And what I'm most excited about with this is a couple different things. So $1.39 would increase the total adjusted operating levy to be $4.7338 based on 2025 tax rate. Okay, next slide. So a couple different things. Is $4.73 is still below 2014 historical high over the last 20 years, where it kind of went up. So it's the tax rate that we're going to ask the voters for in 2027 is to be 2 cents lower than the tax rate 13 years prior. Okay? But still remain lower than over a decade ago. This is our current rate that I anticipate the board approving next month. Next. Aligning, to me, this is one of the most important slides of it, because it kind of brings it all together, is aligning the community's vision when the community came in February and said, hey, we feel these things need to be done. We asked the board to look at it, giving the board like permission, hey, please look at this and these things. Is it's recognizing in this, all this works together, right? Is over the last 8 years, conservative financial stewardship, eliminating the general obligation debt, the grant funding, efficiency throughout the district, at all levels. Okay? Next, brings in, okay, our community says, hey, we need to have safety, security, all the different things, right? Community priorities. But this ask also, the way we're asking with an operating tax levy, is there's taxpayer projections. Our entire levy will be subject to the Hancock amendment. So in future years, as the assessed valuation within our district goes up, one of the things that I hear often is, with the debt service levy isn't subject to Hancock. There's a lot of talk about that even on the state level. Our entire levy will be subject to the Hancock, which means that it will decrease as property values rise. So that 473 is the highest that it'll ever be. And from the point that it's approved, it will either go down slowly or the board will have the ability, to even do a further reduction as representatives of the community based on needs and time and different things. That was my big fear. I go back to one is getting the right number. But I knew that with the board and our track record we've reduced the tax levy 6 consecutive years. Building that trust that this board has proven to do that we have been good stewards, that we'll hit our marks, be able to meet the needs of our students, and truly maintain Hillsboro R-3 as a true pre-K through 14 opportunity by executing the right projects at the right time and the maximum financial protection for our taxpayers. And some of you might be like, I know you're retiring, but there's only 12 grades at Hillsboro High School. But in our school district, I was visiting with Ms. Hildebrand, the explosion of our kids going to ATS. Our kids with our partnership with Jefferson College is we have kids graduating with an associate's degree. That's the 14 that kids, when they start in early childhood, that'll show up with all those teachers over there, and they leave with an associate's degree. Or my son Drew's called me on the phone. He's in Columbia doing his medic because he started his EMT in high school in Fire 1 and 2. Fire 1 and 2 in ATS did EMT. That's a heck of an opportunity and value for our district. But aside from that, that is why I have to answer a phone call. I have a person in the district trying to get into our district because of what we have, but it's also, it's vital. We aren't going to be able to sustain what we've been doing. It's not like, I'm not a big on the threat, that's not, but it's being mindful. We have our reserves, I went through that, we're going to project into 23, but long term and even the short term, like $1.39 is the number that needs to will address the facility and protect what we have and what we've built as a school district. And so that is, you go one more slide. Where we're at. So this final slide, the question before us is not simply whether our taxes remain low, and it is the lowest in the St. Louis metro area, down through the Boot Heel. The question remains whether we want to remain a strong, competitive destination communities for families, educators, businesses, and future generations. And so the documents before you, the technical documents, approving the resolutions, and if the board would approve this, this will go on the November ballot. One other item I do want to mention is, I didn't put in a presentation, running a ballot issue in November is approximately $25,000. In April, it's 13. So approximately almost double. It would actually be cheaper to put it on April. But in visiting with the board and looking at it is, I think this issue and kind of continuing on we talk about trust. And as a board is the most people that are going to go to the polls is huge. That investment in the November election is money well spent, regardless of how it occurs, that's when a majority of voters typically go, and that allows for planning, but it engages a majority of the voters, but it is almost double the cost for the district to do November election versus May.
Questions?
John, that's right, you touched on, sitting thinking about this, and I mean, we all, I've been on this board for, I don't know, the last 11 years, I guess, and seeing what, we've been able to do, like you mentioned earlier, working lean, but one of the arguments that you may see sometimes or hear sometimes, when districts or anybody's asking for a tax increase is, live within your means. And like someone sitting here, I can say, we absolutely have. You kind of touched on it with, bringing the spend at central office down. We've right-sized a lot of our classrooms, our in all of our buildings, as the enrollment has allowed. Then going up, we needed to. What would your point be to someone that would say that, live within your means based on what we're looking at here?
I thought about that a lot, and actually it's, started working on it. So here's, the issue that we're at. And we will live within our means, regardless of what would transpire, right? Because you have to live within your means as a school district. The issue is no pattern. Do you have, we've been working on,
Yeah.
would you,
Yeah, some things there.
you know what, I'm gonna ask, there's better, this is really, as I was sitting there thinking on that, is how I would answer that, because I actually visited some baseball parents ask this question. So some of this is not a clean, this is a work in progress, but it's the best way to answer this. And somebody watching will be able to see it. This is putting together kind of a history and comparison of tax rate. And so, to someone who asked me, live within your means. Absolutely, we will live within our means. But in some ways, I'm gonna ask the question back to you. Are you prepared to have a school and the opportunity that it may look like that's living within their means? Because we operate, and our means is, I kind of talked about this as a historical tax rate. It's probably not that one, here we go.
Yeah.
So living within your means. This is our upcoming tax rate, $3.43. So was living within your means, and there's some information later on, I'm gonna show you like investments other schools have made. And a lot of times people look at like, they say live within your means, but then they're like, why do we not have a field like Windsor? Why do we not have a fine arts center like Festus? Why do we not have this? Why do we not have this? And so, like when I visit with this, in this district, the Dunklin district, this isn't your house is worth this amount. This is what the county assessor has assessed your house, which I encourage everyone to be informed. Go to Jefferson County Property Viewer, look up your own house. So on a $300,000 house, when you say live within your means, the means for a Douglas resident is $2,700 versus $2,000. The means is $700 more on that one house. And so when they say we live within your means, all right, our kids are going to have less than their neighboring school district. It's wherever, when you even like a $500,000 house, it's $1,100 difference. And when you see the different items, now Festus, you're like, well, wow, Festus, and this is important. Festus, candidly, in 2019, approved an operating tax increase of about, don't quote me on this, about 50 or 60 cents ballpark, and went to $4.30 some odd cents. That's ballpark. That's not a quotable item, but it's, you can look that up. Is slowly, they did projects in their district. They did their fine arts. They added to the different schools. I think they did the baseball field. There were intermediate additions. All during that time, remember I talked about the tax rate continued to go down? The tax rate at Festus has slowly, through the Hancock Amendment, come down. They've built the projects as the tax rate has gone down. Hillsboro's will do the exact same thing. Now, well, they only did 60 cents versus $1.39. There's a lot different environment, state funding playing into it, and the scope of the cost of waiting, right? They talked about the cost of waiting. 2019, we're almost 10 years later, construction costs, and there was a global pandemic in between, right? Inflation. So, going to this kind of plays into the next slide. Now you got me on a tangent, right? Because here's the thing, is this is, I talked about all of St. Louis, this is kind of the regional going through. So when you look at Duncan, Scott County Central, and some of these are close, if you join up, Sykeston, 429, Cape, Fredericktown, and I kind of reference here, is Hillsboro's tax rate this upcoming year. These are the schools below us. Woodland, Meadow Heights, Potosi, Perry County, I do believe they passed something that actually jumped up. They passed that. St. Genevieve, as I talked about, has the $3.40 because of the. If you take that, so we talk about living within your means, and some of that, there's assessed valuation tied to that too, right? So we have a fairly, overall home values, self-reliant, our assessments don't always match that. That goes to the next thing, because I'd actually that's a question I get asked all the time, is this right here. The same analogy, like living within your means. We absolutely will. But when you have a $3.43 tax levy, and I'm trying to create, school finance gets somewhat complicated, right? So if you can indulge me, a little AI, I do apologize for, that's not really Hillsboro School District, but I was visiting with some teachers about it, and actually was visiting the office with the secretary about it today. And they're like, what does that mean? Walk that through the levy. What's the thing is why it's important is, let's take the tax rate like that, Doctor, $4.87. Let's pretend that's $48,700. All right, Mr. Stevenson, you have $48,700. I'm going to be Hillsboro. Next year, I'm going to have $34,300. And we're going to go shopping for a car. We're going to go over to St. Paul. The salesman is going to show us two different cars. He's not going to walk me to the $48,000 car. And I'm like, well, I only got $34,000. He's like, well, let me walk you back over here. Right? You're going to get what you pay for, and there's going to be, you can mess with the options, but you're going to get the high mileage. It's going to look different. A house is going to look different. Take it to a $480,000 house, and this is no different. And so what are we able to provide? And the thing that scares me is the state's taking it worse, is if we don't have historically, things are like cyclical. 10 years ago, Prop C funding, when I first started at Hillsboro, 2008, boom recession. When you do things lean and fiscally, is in a lot of ways like, I wish we had some fat to address that didn't impact kids. Because the thing is, kids will be impacted. The programs that we put in place are going to be impacted shorter than, and there's been, we've talked about that in the articles in the paper. Now, one of the things too is, all right, are all the other schools talking about this? They will be, this conversation, we're talking about tonight because we're talking about projects. When I talk about trust in the community, we have to talk about it. Because we can't be like, let's do the projects here in November, we're gonna come back in April and do whatever the state funding thing is. Right? That's gonna be a disconnect with our people. So, that's where we can live within our means. What kind of car do you want to go? And this is your school. This is the opportunities when we talk about K-14 is it the ATS program? Is it kids being able to be, you do a little bit of that, it's the early childhood program. You dial that back. It's a DA program. Is it sports? Because the thing is, it's not going to be safety and security, and it's not going to be the teachers in the classroom and paying. So when you say that, that person asked me, you know, you live within your means. We absolutely will. My fear is, do you want to send your child to the school that looks like these means provide? And that's not trying to be disparaging, and we love our taxpayers. We haven't, like, and being totally respectful of it, but it's just being respectful and mindful both ways. Does that answer your question? So, I think, well, we hit one, I know because I talked about, here's the thing, to those parents, because this is when we talk about why we're asking today. This actually came up from visit with, this, part of this, I was actually visiting with some of our labor leaders at the Labor Club meeting a year ago. Is over the last, this isn't over like the last 5 years, FES is 48, and maybe more now, the $48 million in county school construction, all right? Fox, 40 million, this was not necessarily accurate, but this was accurate in the last 24 months, okay? But you can see over the last 5 years, when people ask, well, why do they have this? Because they had tax levy increases, construction projects, all funded through bonds or levy decisions, of which we haven't asked. We're coming to ask now, but that's why they've added on to their house, I guess they're saying, is we haven't. We haven't remodeled, we've been, but we're in a position to do so now, and to do so in a cost-effective way, save taxpayer dollars to also, we're not taking a bond and start paying interest right away. We're gonna be able to get the money, is working with the architects to be drawing it, that's gonna be collecting, earning interest. Like, oh wow, and when we're talking about in school finance, like, $1 million makes a lot of interest, that may pay for a parking lot striping off the interest versus taxpayer dollars. And that's, same rule applies there as if you're using interest to work for you instead of paying on it. So, that's the why. So that's kind of example there, but this is obviously not cleaned up, but it kind of, I think it illustrates it because I was visiting with those parents about it, kind of putting things together. Because I know people ask that question. So, any other questions?
The $4.73, if that new rate is approved, do you know how that will impact our rate when compared to the other regional schools? You had kind of the current state of things on the previous slide.
So if you go back like 3 slides, this can be ballpark.
Yeah, so like right here.
No. Well, yeah, technically you can go here. So again, this is going to be an approximate based on their assessed valuations. This is 25-ish data because there's Hancock Amendment and there's things. So there may be subtle movement. It's not like somebody North County High School is going to jump to 3 points. So there will be still below Windsor, Sunrise, Dunklin in the county, Crystal City at 466. If you go back one more, Mr. Quinn, countywide, it would be right in here.
Yeah. No, I mean, and my own concern in asking that is that it would jump us all the way up to the top, and we'd be in leaps and bounds above with what Hancock might do.
Yeah. And here's the thing, with the Hancock Amendment, is we're gonna be growing in this area. I do anticipate, like, we're going up there doing the projects, phase one, and it's gonna immediately start, not immediately, 2028, there'll be adjustment 2028, it would not surprise me. With, in 2029, a reassessment is, then, again, that's the ceiling, and the board, it has the ability to move it down, but the Hancock was so similar when I referenced Festus, right? In 2019, they passed it, 2027, so 8 years, 9 years, it's dropped to 30 cents, so that kind of shows, that's right. A lot of information.
Yeah, other questions from the group tonight? Okay, all right, thank you for the presentation very much. Our last item of business here is with regards to this ballot resolution, so if you'll forgive me, the resolution itself is a little bit lengthy, so as I read this, just take a note, and it's got quite a few words to it. So, I am asking now for a motion to approve a resolution calling a special election on an operating tax levy question in the reorganized school district, R-3, Jefferson County, ordering the election on Proposition H for November 3rd, 2026, approving the notice of the special election, and authorize the board president, the board secretary, the superintendent, and other appropriate district officials to execute and file all documents necessary with the Jefferson County clerk in accordance with Missouri law. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All right. Floor is open for any comments, questions, or other concerns with regard to Proposition H. Done a fine job of preparing us for this potential opportunity for the district. So thank you for your leadership. Okay, hearing no questions, all those in favor of approval? Okay, and none opposed? Motion carries. All right, that brings us to the end of new business tonight. We do have a few dates on the calendar coming up. We will have our tax rate hearing ahead of our open session meeting on September the 17th. And then our MSBA fall regional meeting will be at the Rockwood School District on September the 28th. So, with that, we are at the end of tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn tonight at 8:33?
Motion.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.